The oscillator. An oscillator is a circuit which produces or responds to electromagnetic waves, usually within a range of frequencies. The circuit may consist of only a single wire, crystal, or transistor semiconductor device. They respond most strongly to vibration at their resonant frequency. Everything in nature is an oscillator, and God is the spark projecting all frequencies to which everything responds. Atoms and molecules are perfect oscillators, which respond to light by absorbing and emitting at specific frequencies. Even complex organic molecules like melanin exhibit quantum states once thought to be limited to atoms and molecules. An oscillator's ability to absorb and emit energy explains a host of phenomena which were once considered mysterious. Oscillator, a sine wave within a circle, is the modern symbol that corresponds to while the Uterus, which is the ancient symbol representing the serpent's undulating or oscillating movements across the sand. A circuit containing a capacitor, inductor, and resistor are the components of an oscillator, which operates within a defined range of frequencies depending on their values. Because of the frequency restricted nature of these oscillators, they are called filters. They are also called tank circuits because of their ability to store energy. When the switch is open, oscillations are produced by the opposing nature of the reactive components. However, without a method of amplification in the LC circuit, the resistance eventually quells these oscillations. The result is a dampened waveform. The components of a typical oscillator can be traced to the Amun priesthood, which wielded power based on knowledge kept secret from the masses. The symbols in many hieroglyphic reliefs are in fact elements of electronic circuit design, meant to convey knowledge of the hidden force of electromagnetism to the future generations of this order. These symbols would hold supreme religious significance only to the descendants of a race of photonic beings. The mathematical description of a sine wave is attributed to Fourier, one of the 167 French savants who accompanied Napoleon in the conquest of Egypt. His formula describing a wave as a distinctive sum of sine waves defined by their frequency, amplitude, and phase predates the European discovery of electromagnetic waves by almost a century. Like Volta's discovery of the jet, Fourier's mathematical description of the serpent has made a profound impact on all areas of analysis from sound to quantum physics. The scepter, rod, conductor, or connector is an important electronic component used in the conveyance of current through a circuit and in discharging a capacitor, shrine. The gods are often shown holding the scepter to symbolize their power over the lethal force of electrical discharge. This rod, having a loop at its base, which allowed a free swinging connection, is a switch. Once planted by the loop, it was thrown against the shrine to effect an electrical discharge flow to the ground. Hence the phrase, throw the switch. The electric field around a dipole antenna. dipole antenna. The mark of the beast Set, a canine, and the mark of Cain are one and the same, the symbol of Christendom. The ion only the Setian could consider positive, while the ideograph of the earth is the ground and a source of the electron. The Egyptians were fully aware of the fact that a spark produced high-frequency discharge and understood the inductive properties of rods and wires. So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and did as the Lord commanded. Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh summoned the wise men and sorcerers, and they also, the magicians of Egypt, did the same by their secret arts. For every man cast down his rod, and they became serpents. Exodus 7:10. A conductor wrapped in coiled fashion, as a serpent is known to coil itself around a rod, is an electromagnet. But Aaron's rod swallowed their rods. The Egyptian name for this coil circuit is Keb, which is also the name of the multi-coiled mythological serpent, Keb. The magnetic attraction of a coil was well known to the Egyptians 4,000 years before the European named Gauss, Henry, or Weber as units of magnetic force. Another device attributed to Moses is the helicial antenna, made in the form of a copper serpent and suspended on a pole. It was supposedly built in the wilderness, Egypt, and as the golden calf represented the goddess Hathor, the serpent was symbolic of the goddess Isis. The serpent built by Moses was destroyed by Hezekiah during a period when Israel was under intense pressure from the Assyrians to abandon their spiritual, cultural, and military alliances with Egypt. He removed the high places and broke the pillars and cut down the Asherah, and he broke in pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made. For until those days the people of Israel had burned incense to it. It was called Nehushtan. 2 Kings 18:4. Antennas are resonant circuits which detect a specific range of frequencies. Two forms of these are the half-wave dipole and loop antenna. Used extensively by Hertz to prove the existence of electromagnetic waves, the loop antenna was used to detect the waves emitted from a dipole antenna. At the turn of the century, the basic concepts of the Ankh were understood as evidenced by the Dudel musical arc. The arc or spark gap has negative resistance, where the resistance to electron flow is greatly reduced. If an oscillating circuit, inductor, and capacitor is placed across a spark gap, oscillations are induced in that circuit. A metal loop in close proximity to the spark gap could be excited into oscillation due to the ultraviolet rays ionizing the air between the gap of the loop. Perhaps the closest circuit that describes the Ankh operation is the Leibowitz mercury generator, invented in 1914. Using a mercury vapor tube instead of a spark gap, continuous oscillation was produced. With the advent of other negative resistance devices like the vacuum tube and the transistor, spark gap oscillators were no longer used. They were considered noisy for the purpose of communication. The question still remains whether a method of amplification existed in ancient Kemet. An essential component in the production of continuous wave oscillation, amplification is necessary in overcoming the dampening effects of circuit resistance. It is my belief that both evacuated glass tubes, vacuum tubes, and semiconductor type active components were known and used by the Egyptians. The modern equivalent of the Ankh using tunnel diodes. Continuous waves have been produced in circuits using an arc light bulb as an active device, and it should be remembered that the first vacuum tubes were invented through experimentation with ordinary light bulbs. You may be asking yourself why the Europeans did not use the Ankh for its intended purpose, or how could an object so popular in the Nile valleys of Africa be virtually ignored in Europe. This is because the Europeans lacked melanin, which is an organic semiconductor that acts as a detector, the sixth sense. Without an electric skin, an Ankh is practically useless. However, the principles on which the Ankh operated would give birth to the many electronic gadgets in use today.